This is the Work University Podcast, episode 48.
This is Work University, and I'm Annalisa Felix. This is where I interview people from various employment backgrounds and get the inside scoop on what their job is really like. If you're just getting into the workforce, or if you're curious about getting into something new, listen up. Hi, today I am speaking with Leah, who is an electrician, and I'm so excited to get to learn the deep ins and outs of being an electrician and some of the things we didn't know. So Leah, welcome to the podcast. So
thank you for having me.
Let's get into it. So on a normal day-to-day, what is your routine as an electrician?
So I have a morning routine, and depending on the location, the job site that I'll be working at will determine how long the drive is.
So how many, let's say, clients do you have a day normally?
So this is what's interesting. When most people hear electrician, they think residential electrician. So they imagine that I'm going to a client's house and I am installing lights, or I am going to a school. But this is not what I do. So I specialize in control work. My clients are data centers. I do building automation. So I like to explain it as Terminator, one little machine talking to another little machine, and I help the machines connect.
So then you're right, because I was thinking light switches, I was thinking other things like that. So you're more of a niche electrician, would that be fair to say?
Industrial, commercial. And just to preface, there are many different types of electricians that specialize in many different facets.
Okay, what are some of the few that, maybe we haven't heard about?
Okay, you have your linemen. So those are the guys up on the poles dealing with the heavy duty utility.
Mm-hmm.
These are badass, okay? These guys take great risk. They're dealing with a big deal, and that's how you get power to your home. So they're pretty important. You have power plant electricians, specialize in those types of atmospheres and buildings. You have comm, so communications technicians that deal with electrical work, and depending on the state will determine if they're classified as an electrician or not. They're dealing with low voltage. Electricians who deal with medium voltage tend to be transformers. There's testing, different types of testing. So there's quite a lot.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned those different avenues of being an electrician and what they can work on, there's specialties that I would think are specialties, like say custom cruise ships or custom things out at sea, but there's only one or two of them. And so how does the electrician know, like, do they have to specialize in that certain one thing, or is it a general electrician knowledge that you can apply to niche? How does that work?
So elevator electricians,
Yes,
specialty,
yes.
metro work is a specialty.
Trains,
so you have
airplanes.
Right. You have typically either you're going to do residential route or you're going to do commercial industrial. If you're going to work in commercial industrial atmosphere, generally speaking, you will join a union. As you move through the union working different contractors, you might gravitate towards a specialty. Or if you work for a construction company that's privately owned, if they specialize, they will train you through their courses, their protocols, their systems.
Going off on another tangent with the boom of electric cars, things like that. Tell me how that impacts the job force of an electrician, air quote.
Well, it doesn't really impact us, with the exception of that ties into control work. And we're not getting away from building automation. It's only growing. People are trying to put controls in most everything, your homes, your security systems, your cars. So that's a good thing for us, especially
Right.
for me in my field. It's not going anywhere. It's getting bigger and bigger, and therefore I have tons of work opportunities.
So let's get back to your particular niche, because that's what I want to find out about and kind of dig deep into that. So, and tell me what it is that you need to do for the administrative side behind the scenes, and then the actual hands-on, fixing or upgrading, whatever it is you do to help the client for that day.
I'm a part of a union, and so the way that it's structured is an imperial structure. So you have your crew has a lead, that crew has a foreman, the foreman then speaks to the superintendent, and it goes up. So I am installing, I'm testing, I am fabricating, I am not doing paperwork. I'm hands-on problem solving and making the lights turn on, so to speak.
Right. So make that relatable to me for your niche. What is what you're doing relate to me in that particular niche, so I can make it visible to whoever's listening right now what you're doing? Because it still seems kind of abstract. It's kind of like, I'm not really sure, but can you nail it down just a little bit more for me?
The best explanation I've heard is your cloud. The buildings I work in are your physical representation of cloud. This is how you have internet. This is how all of these things function, like Amazon. We're the matrix. We're the physical representation of your internet source. So in these buildings where you can think of it as storing internet.
Data storage.
Right, data storage.
Got it.
There are certain requirements the building needs in order to operate. So, for example, one thing is these computerized elements like what we call clean electricity. So it has to move through many different types of transformers and instruments in order to maintain this, quote, clean electricity. Also, you're getting utility power that's coming in, and you need to bring that down to 277 to 120 volts. You need to create an atmosphere where there's no humidity, where the temperature is controlled in order for all of these things to function.
Okay, now we're talking data in the cloud, but you are physically maintaining the machinery, the temperature, and all of that, so that cloud can still keep working.
Mm-hmm.
Because if one of these things are off, that can affect the communications data in the cloud, correct?
Yes. So the number one concern is power going down. So the client that I serve and do the majority of the work for, my construction company that I work for, is one of your big
Right.
data companies.
Right.
So if they lose power, they lose multi-millions of dollars.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we ensure that there's utility power and UPS and generator. So all of these backup systems ensure that there's always power. And then the safety behind that as well. So you've got circuit breakers protecting fluctuation. You have PLCs, which is your programmable logic computers that are communicating to the devices to ensure that everything is kosher.
Wow. Okay, you mentioned a few terms that I'd like to unpack because I don't know what they mean as a non-electrician. You mentioned UPS, you mentioned union in your electrician area, and imperial. So can you tell me what those mean? Because I didn't ask you when you were saying it.
Unions were originally constructed to ensure worker safety, to advocate for tradespeople. Back in the day, our conditions were very unsafe and we were underappreciated. And so unions were brought together to give us a voice. Now, there are different types of unions. We call some business unions, which move away from the original idea of having the workers have a voice. An imperial structure is you have your head, so your president, so to speak, and
Okay.
then your committee, and then the people. And unions were supposed to advocate for the members, be a true democracy in the definition. So think of Roman court, where it's a real representation of the people's voice. And by becoming more business oriented, money, money is always a big drive. When you have a president and then your set council of the head of the union, sometimes the people's voice often gets lost because they're going to make choices that they believe are in the best interest of business or the organization itself, and maybe not the original intent, which are the workers.
Okay. And then you said UPS.
Yes. So your UPS is your in between. So in order to safely move from utility power to a generator, you need to pass through a UPS.
So it's an electrician term, not a delivery service. Okay,
yes.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. So let's talk about if I'm a student and I really like to get hands-on and I maybe want to get into an electrician type of role. Talk to me about salaries and beginning, and do I need certifications, and what are the different types of things that I need to look out for getting into this line of work?
Okay. If you're interested in becoming an electrician, the number one thing you should do is research your state. Where are you living? Is your state primarily union based? Are they public? This is very important because it will help guide you on what will be the best route for you. Electricians in my area make 6 figures and up. That is just in this area. So in other states, it's less. In some states, it's more. So again, it depends on your state. If you go the union route, you're going to get a lot of benefits, but it's going to be militant. You will be a number. It is not a focus on the individual. So you'll have your structured apprenticeship program. You'll be guided through many different types of electrical work, but you will have to be a strong advocate to follow the path that you want to follow for yourself. Because in unions, they want you to be a jack of all trades because that's in their best interest. However, I see the most success with journeymen and journeywomen who specialize. And it's because you make yourself indispensable. You're not just anyone, you're focused.
When you say journeyman, do you mean an employee?
A licensed electrician.
Okay.
We call them journeymen, journeywomen.
Okay. Now, thinking back to when you started just getting into this field of work, did you have any idea about your path? And tell me a little bit about any bumps in the road or things you thought were going to happen and were totally different and you had to pivot, things like that, and to where you got here.
Okay, so my story is a little crazy. I was in medical aesthetics for over a decade. So I like to say I went from bolts to Botox. I traded in beauty treatments for electronics. I had no idea about union, non-union. I had just lost a commercial fishing business that I had stepped into with an ex-fiance, now ex. It was a domestic violence situation, and with COVID, the business went under, and I fled that relationship. So I lost everything. everything. I was starting all over again. And I really had no idea what I was going to do. My brother-in-law suggested that I look into the trades because as a medical esthetician, I worked with lasers and commercial fishing. I was very active, always working with my hands. So that's why he introduced the idea of the trades to me. And I said at the time, thinking you need to go to a school, a trade school for this. I have nothing. I've lost everything. I had to flee my home state for my own safety. I mean, everything, all of my possessions gone. And he said he heard of an all-female trade school that offered scholarships, like full ride. And I applied and happened to get accepted and was able to learn about a little bit about carpentry, a little bit about plumbing, and then electrical work. And I fell in love with the electrical field. That is how it began. Then I learned about unions. I decided for where I live and the environment that I'm in, the union was the best option for me. And that's why I decided to join an electrical union.
Wow. So all of this to where you are now only happened in the last few years.
Correct.
Wow. That blows my mind. I love it. Thank you so much. Now, you said something about getting a full ride scholarship. Does that maybe lead me to believe that this is a field that is losing its membership and it
So I'm very lucky. Most trade schools do not have this option because there's such a deficit of female in the trades. There's a lot of government support to get more women involved in trades work. So this is a unique opportunity that I had offered to me in my state. That being said, we have a big issue that's coming up. So there's a huge lack of tradesmen, tradeswomen, craftsmen, because our culture, our society has pushed in the 1990s, especially college. And this mentality that getting into the trades is somehow less than, being blue collar is lacking. You were not able to have an academic career. You will not make six figures unless you have a college degree. This really hurt the trades community. Now, we're the ones that build the buildings. We are the infrastructure of our country. So all of these tradesmen and tradeswomen that are skilled are retiring, and you have an influx, a trickle of new tradeswomen and tradesmen who do not have the years of experience that these guys do. This is going to cause big issues for the country.
So do you foresee at some point there's going to be a crossroads where, we didn't see this coming?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's going to be our typical way where we're not going to see the problem, or I would say most of society would not see the problem until it's already happening. Now, I am lucky because where there is scarcity, there is great value. So what's going to happen? Well, if it's very hard to find good electricians, it's very hard to find good carpenters and plumbers, what happens? Well, my salary's going up. You're going to need me. So then there will be a rush of people who want to be involved in the trades.
That is a whole other talk show in itself. But,
so that being said, it's very, very good time if you need to pivot in your career, or you're curious about learning about a career in construction or the trades, now is the time to check it out and explore.
Right. Let's talk about any dangers.
Oh, of course.
Workplace dangers in your position. So have you seen any? Have you experienced any? What in general? I know there's a safety component. What can you tell me?
So again, Back in the 1950s and 60s, 70s, our safety conditions were just horrendous. Now it's not like that at all. So, is there risk on construction sites? Absolutely. But I wouldn't say any more risk than most jobs that involve you to be physically active. We have many safety regulations in place. The apprenticeship program are incredible at preparing you for what to expect. During the Renaissance and the Golden Age, one of the reasons why we had so many amazing architects and artists and scientists was because apprenticeship was pushed, and we've lost that along the way. We've lost the value of having mentors and apprenticeships with this big focus on academic and book knowledge. Now, I'm a huge advocate for books. I love reading. I read a book a week, but nothing beats experience. It's a very different concept to read about how to do something and then physically do it. You should see these guys that have been in the field for 10, 20, 30 years. I'm in awe of them. The way that their body and mind work together, it's like they're dancing. I mean, it's incredible how they can move, how they use the tools. Really just mind-blowing to watch them. I remember asking my journeyman, how can I move like you? And he said, time, practice.
Yeah, exactly.
So regarding safety, I have never seen an accident on site with the exception of one incident. And he would be embarrassed to hear me tell this story because we work with power tools, saws, all different kinds of dangerous things. And how he ended up hurting himself was he chopped off the end of his finger by jumping up on what we call a gang box. It's a metal box that contains all of our tools on the site that we lock up at the end of the day. He jumped up on the box and accidentally lifted the lid as he jumped up to sit back on it, and the lid came down on his finger and chopped off the end of his finger.
And that's not even electricity related.
No, not at all. So usually it's just silly things, you're just not paying attention or you're overtired. One of our big mottos is never become complacent. Always respect electricity. And a lot of the guys follow this.
You mentioned guys. Do you work
Yes.
with mainly men, or have you worked with women, or have you seen women emerging?
I'm the only female in my crew. I'm the only female in my classes. So there are other females, and every time I see one on site, I'm like, instant friends, we're girls. Hi. Like, be my friend.
Yeah.
But this is one of the things that I'm passionate about on my podcast, Sparky Life, is getting women to be more curious about construction careers, because every woman that I've spoken to that started in the trades, they are so empowered. They find it to be an incredible experience, and they really love what they're doing.
Now, you did mention before some advice for anybody who wants to maybe even as a student get into this career path, or as a, let's say, mid-career wanting to switch to research what's in their state, maybe, because there's many different types of electricians. So that's great too. You did mention that women are emerging. Are there associations for electricians? Are there associations for women electricians?
Yes.
To get more information?
Yes, there's a Facebook group called Women in the Trades. There are many different organizations that are focused on introducing women to the trades, like Women's Work, Step Up Program. In New York, it's called NEW. I forget the acronym, but many different types of programs you want to research in your area. The key is to ask questions.
Now, you did mention you have a podcast. Tell me a little bit more about it and where we can follow you and listen to your podcast.
So the podcast is called Sparky Life, and we discuss women in the trades and construction careers. Talk to all different types of trades, ask them about their day-to-day backgrounds. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook page at Sparky Life of Leah. We're on Apple, Spotify.
Great. So listeners, if you have any, interest in getting into the electrician field, I recommend listening to this podcast, researching, asking questions, and, just digging deeper before you actually start taking the classes or, getting into the deep end of things. So find out the good, the bad, what you like about it. And that's one thing I want to ask you. What is the good part about it? And what is the not so, desirable part that maybe we're not aware of, but it's kind of something you have to deal with?
So my specialty, I can only speak on. But the things that I love about it are I'm using my mind and my body. So it's extremely rewarding. You will hear many tradespeople when they go by a building or a site go, I built that. And that's an incredible feeling. As you work on a project, you get to see the progress, which is very fulfilling. You're working with a team, and humans are very group-oriented creatures. So working with a team is an incredible experience. I love I love being a part of automation, making things work, fixing them, inventing. The things that are not the most fun are, taking things out to trash, carrying a conduit. There's a misconception that you need to be the Hulk to work in the trades. And nowadays, with technology and power tools advancing, you don't. I'm 5'5". I'm like 130 pounds. I'm still working on lifting my own body weight. So you don't have to be this like Amazon, Arnold Schwarzenegger guy to do this, but you do need to be able to lift 50 or 75 pounds. You do need to be in shape. That's the other thing that I love about it. You're physically active. I really go to the gym for pure joy at this point. My gym is going to the office. So, but cleaning up metal conduit at the end of the day, that's not fun. Or I'm afraid of heights. As an electrician, working on a 12-foot ladder isn't my favorite thing. But you learn, you adapt, you make it work.
Wow. You definitely shed some light on some things about the electrician field that I didn't know. So I'm excited to learn this, and I might even do some research on some different trades myself. Being an advocate of education and experience, I think it's so interesting, especially now in after COVID, seeing how many of these trades are needed, construction, home rebuilding, all of these things that are needed, but the resources are a little funky right now. The, people are so busy, they're backed up, all of that. And it's just bringing it to the front that maybe, hey, we do need to look a little further ahead and say, we need more tradespeople in the field too, especially if, you like working with your hands, you like getting physical. But thank you so much for giving us a peek into the electrician field and giving us some of your expertise. So thankful.
Oh, it was my pleasure. That's why I am a big fan of your podcast. I think it's very, very valuable and important. Speaking to people who work in the career, you're never going to get better information than that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and leave a review, or contact me at hello@workuniversity.org to work with me while you're on your job search journey.